Unacademy. Let's crack it.
Hello everyone, this is Abhishek Saraf. I've secured All India rank 8th in UPSC Civil Service exam of 2019, and in this video I'll be sharing my insights into how you can keep your motivation going to those years of hard work that UPSC Civil Service exam can expect from you. Hopefully they will help you in keeping your wheels turning, so to say, keeping yourself motivated, keeping yourself enabling yourself, keeping yourself focused enough so that you can work hard for all those years and hopefully emerge out of this cycle successful. Good luck. So let's begin. See, the first and the most important thing I would like to emphasize is that when you think about preparing for UPSC Civil Service exam, I would advise that you get your reasons straight. You understand, introspect, give yourself time to realize why you want to prepare for this exam in the first place. What is your motivation to join civil service? Why you want to become an IAS, IPS, IRS, or any other service for that matter? Why you want to join railway police service? What will you do? What is good that will come to you, and what is the good that you will be able to give others? Realize that. And this is not a philosophical point I'm making. It is a very practical thing. It is as practical as interview can be. My point being that during the interview, one of the most famous questions that has been asked by UPSC boards is that why you want to join civil service, why you want to become an IAS, why are you coming from civil engineering to civil service? That was a question that I was asked in 2019 interview. So it is an HR question, and it reflects your thought process, it reflects your thinking, it reflects your ideology. So my advice is that if you are going to reflect on this answer, come up with an answer for this question for the interview, then why not do it at the first day itself? And there are good reasons for it. See, if you have your reasons straight, if you have your head straight, if you have a clarity in thought that why I want to go to civil service, it will give you energy. It will give you a positive boost. And that positive boost will enable you to emerge out of any problem that this exam will put on you. See, even if you are going to secure rank 1 in the first attempt, what will happen is that even the people who have secured rank 1, they face failures. They face disappointments during this exam. Sometimes some content did not get very clear to them. Sometimes they were not able to associate with the content. Sometimes they did not get good marks in the paper. Somebody in the mock interview told them that you are not good enough for civil service. You don't deserve to be a civil servant. It has happened. Sometimes mock boards tend to behave that way. So when you are facing these challenges, this motivation, when you are down, hurt, during the preparation, the motivation of why you want to join civil service will reignite this fire, and you will be able to emerge like a phoenix. So that is why I said that why you want to join civil service, have this reason straight in your head. Please realize that why you want to do that. Do you want to bring a positive change in the society? Do you want to contribute to the life of others? Do you want to contribute to the nation building? Do you want to be the part of the team that eventually makes India a developed country? Do you want something like that? Do you want to learn, apply, and contribute? Why I say that? Because the diversity of challenges that civil servants face, the diversity of portfolios that they hold, the diversity of people they interact with, that enables them to capture knowledge to the largest extent, to one of the largest extent possible. And then it is natural for humans to apply what they learned. Otherwise, what is the point? You could never compete with Google. You are not even able to compete with a library. You won't be able to conquer a library. A library will always have more knowledge than you. But what you can do is apply what you learn. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us intelligent. That has what has been the reason for the development of civilization, because we applied. So civil service provides you an immense opportunity to learn, apply, and if you're applying it at a large scale, if you're applying it for the benefit of others, then naturally you're contributing. So this is what my reason was: learn, apply, and contribute. And that is what motivated me. I'm a naturally inquisitive person and I like to learn new things. And the preparation as well as the service provides you immense, tremendous opportunities. I'll just give you one example. In the pandemic, in every district, the district magistrate was made the nodal authority for implementing the guidelines of the lockdown, maintaining supply chains, welfare of the people as much as possible during the lockdown. So pandemic was a once in 100-year event. But then they got the chance to learn. They got the chance to develop their personality. They got the chance to assess the people in one of these critical times the world is going through. So learn, apply, contribute. This can be one of your reasons. Like I said, you learn, you develop as an individual, you face challenges, you face adversities. You will face adversities during the exam, you will face adversities in your job, wherever you go. But then civil service is another opportunity where you can develop yourself by facing challenges. Then these are some of the very famous words that have been used by civil service aspirants in the question as to why they want to join civil service. To learn, apply, contribute for job security, for challenge, for diversity. Sometimes people have this reason that my father had a dream that I become an IAS officer. There's nothing wrong with that, but in my personal opinion, it is better, it is more desirable, it is more forward looking, and it is more mature that you have your own reasons rather than just fulfilling the dream of your parents. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having the aspiration to fulfill your parents' dream, but you are going to be a mature, aware, and a learned individual. So you should also have your thinking about why you want to join civil service, what is the good that you will be able to do. But then if you don't have these reasons, there might be some other reasons that you are doing it out of spite. You want to show someone else that, okay, I'm a civil servant now, I'll become more powerful than you. When these are not honest reasons, please don't prepare for civil service or jump into this challenging path with reasons that are not honest. If you have reasons that are not honest, that are not diligent, that are not sincere, you will lose motivation in the first few challenges that you face during preparation. If your reasons are not honest, you will not be able to derive motivation. And if you don't derive motivation, you will face challenges and you will fail. So my request to you is that this is a quintessential point, that why you want to join civil services, that will give you immense motivation. And that is why I also had my reasons straight. I took time to develop my reasons. I've mentioned them elsewhere. But then when my motivation came to me, when it was time, when I realized that, okay, this is what I want to do, I could develop immense patience. I could develop immense inquisitiveness to be able to go through the phases of civil service exam. I mentioned that I got 105 marks in essay in civil service exam 2017. I got 79 marks in essay in civil service exam 2018. So when I was facing these immense failures and I did not know what to do, literally nothing was working. I was getting good marks in test series, but I was not able to convert them into marks in mains. Then this motivation that anyway, I'm getting to learn, I'm getting to apply what I learn. And once I go to the job, I'll do it at a much larger scale. This is what enabled me to keep on going. The second thing is that choose your optional wisely. Why am I saying that? Because optional is not just a scoring opportunity. Optional will enable you to channelize your effort productively. Optional will enable you to maximize your result. Not just in optional, but in GS. Why? Because GS is so wide, so diverse that at some point of time or the other, you will find a subject that does not interest you. For me, it was geography. Geography broke my momentum every time I read it. Even though the syllabus for me, for GS, for geography was limited, but geography broke my momentum. It was a snake in my garden. Everything is going fine. You start reading geography, you lose interest. That is how it happened with me. But then if that is happening, what you can do is you can do smart work. If you are studying one subject that does not interest you, and it is a part of the syllabus you have to study, what you can do is pick up a next subject that interests you a lot, that motivates you, the subject that you associate with, subject that you are inquisitive about, subject that you're interested in, and that is going to be your optional. So like I said, UPSC gave you a long list of subjects. They are engineering, humanities, medical sciences, other sciences like physics, chemistry, maths. All these are available. You have language and literature. UPSC has given you such a wide field to choose from, then it has the right to expect. So optional will require you to go deep. Optional will require you to have an understanding of the philosophy of the subject. Optional will require you to have diverse understanding of the subject, various subjects of that particular subject, various sub-subjects of that particular subject. So if you have to go in deep in a subject, you cannot do it honestly without being motivated and passionate about the subject. For me, my optional was civil engineering. I was very passionate about it. I have been very passionate about it, and my profile reflects that. So I could use this subject as a as a source of recreation. I could use this subject as a source of entertainment for me. Optional, time and again people have said that it can be something that you can study, and it should be something that you can study for 10 hours straight and study that again tomorrow. And I actually did that. I did not spend any time for optional between the mains and till the next prelims. The only time during the exam that I studied optional was between the prelims and mains. Other than that, all the year round, I did not study the optional. But then I had that leeway. I could take that leeway because I have been very passionate about civil engineering. I was sincere for it. I was a sincere student of civil engineering since college. Then I had a job experience. I had done research, and I had also been involved in organization of events in my college. My hobby also stems from civil engineering. So if you're that passionate, what will happen is that even if your day is not going well, even if you're studying a subject that does not interest you, still what you can do is study that subject that does not interest you, take up the subject that does interest you next. The other thing will happen if you're not interested in the optional. Suppose I had taken geography as an optional. I don't find it interesting. I'm not very productive while I'm studying geography. I'm not very motivated to study geography. What will happen next is that my momentum will break while I'm studying geography. Now with that negative momentum, now with that negative attitude that I am not able to use the time productively, I'm not able to produce the output from my effort. With that negative feeling, I'll go to GS. And then I'll find something or the other that is not as motivating for me in GS as well. When you're coming with a negative outlook to a thing, or when you're coming with a baggage in your mind that I have not been productive during the day, what will happen is that your momentum, your attitude, and your positivity will get a damage. And then it will become a negative feedback loop. You will not be productive in GS, then you will pick up optional. And naturally, if it is not of your interest, you will not be productive here. And then it will become a negative feedback loop, and your effort will go waste. And when it is developing in your mind the pressure that I'm not being productive in the entire day, I'm not enjoying the preparation, you will completely lose your momentum in the preparation. The wheels that I mentioned, so to say, they will stop turning, and you will fall behind because at the end of the day, it is a competitive exam. So keep something as optional only if it is a subject of your interest. Does not match the skill set. See, if your attitude, your temperament is something else, if I'm more inclined towards technical subjects, if I'm more inclined towards numbers, then I probably should take something as optional which will enable me to delve in that field more rather than taking a humanities subject. That is why I did optional as civil engineering. That is why I took optional as civil engineering. Then there is another parameter that does it help in GS? No, civil engineering does not help me in GS at all, content wise. But how did it help me? I mentioned that I did not study civil engineering all the year round, except when I was preparing for my mains. After the prelims till the mains, there were like 110 days. I spent almost 50% of the time that was available to me for civil engineering, and that helped me a lot. Not only in mains but also with GS. I had so much leverage, I had so much leeway all the year round to devote time on GS. So that is how an optional can help you. It can help you increase your productivity. It can help you increase your score, because even though the total weightage of optional is 500 marks, you can get as high as 360 or 320 to 310 in optional. And to get this kind of total, you will probably need 3 GS papers. So 2 optional papers can give you a score as much as 3 GS papers. And the syllabus of optional is rather limited. The syllabus of GS is vast. It is ever expanding. You can go in any amount of depth. So choose your optional wisely. It will enable you to use your time productively. That is what I mean by the positive feedback loop. You do good in optional, you feel positive about yourself, you think that you used your time productively, and that momentum goes into GS. And then even the subjects which are less interesting to you, because you went with a positive attitude, you are able to produce more from your time. So second point is choose your optional wisely. Otherwise, it will develop a negative feedback loop in your preparation. Change topics. See, please realize that at the end of the day, your brain is a machine. Your brain is a muscle. It will get tired. Repetition takes its toll on you. If you are studying the same subject for 10 hours and it is general studies, not something that you're highly interested in, but you don't mind studying it. For me, that was something like polity, history, or economy. I can study it, but then naturally I'll get tired, my brain will get tired, and when you get tired, your momentum reduces. What happens is that your speed of reading reduces, your retention reduces, your inquisitiveness and your interest reduces, even though temporarily, just for the day, but these things reduce. And then when you go in with a reduced momentum, your productivity will reduce. Reduced productivity will generate a negative feedback loop that I'm not doing the best that I can. I'm not being competitive with others. Maybe others are studying harder. Maybe others are doing better in their preparation. And this same negative feedback loop will affect the next subject that you study. It will affect the next day of preparation. So what I would suggest is that be smart about your preparation. Realize that you need a break. You need a change of subject after maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is. Realize your own pattern, realize your own caliber, and design your timetable accordingly. So what I would suggest is that what I did, that 3.5 to 3 hours for newspaper, 4 hours for one optional or one subject, and another 4 hours for another subject. That is when I was studying optional and GS together, but I could have studied civil engineering for 10 hours straight and for more than 1.5 months straight. That I did between prelims and mains. So I would suggest that instead of getting into the negative feedback loop of having that opportunity cost in your head that, okay, I spent 6 hours, but did I get an output of worth 6 hours? Or did I just waste my time? That opportunity cost is a very impactful, very heavy thing and a very draining and demanding thing in the preparation. You can work for 10 hours a day, you can study for 12 hours a day, and you can be sincere and you can be motivated. But then you'll always end up with a feeling that, am I being the smartest about my preparation? Could I have studied something else in those 10 hours that would have helped me maximize my score, improve my score? That opportunity cost becomes a very heavy, challenging burden in the preparation. And if you are not being productive with your time, that opportunity cost will become a mental tax. It will become a cognitive tax on you. So I would suggest that realize what your study pattern is, realize what your temperament is, and then maybe after 4 hours, that was how it worked for me. Maybe after 4 hours, maybe 3 hours or 5 hours, change subjects. That also goes for longer durations. That I've been studying polity for 2 weeks now. Let me change the subject. Let me get something fresh. See, if you bring new things to your brain, if you give new topics to your brain, if you give new stimulus to your brain gets energized. Your brain suddenly becomes more inquisitive. Your brain suddenly starts absorbing more. That is what happened with me. Maybe you could look into it, and maybe if it works for you that way, it will be helpful for you. There is another trick. Maybe you're not comfortable changing the topics completely. What you can do is that across the GS syllabus and your optional, there are topics that are interlinked. For example, GS1 mentions about the impact of climate change on flora and fauna. There is also a topic in GS3 about environment. What you can do is that switch topics from GS1 to GS3 and study related topics that will help you interlink things even better. Climate change, flora and fauna, disaster. Climate change is leading to a lot many disasters. Extreme weather events are happening. So if you are even if you are changing topics, but you're not comfortable changing them drastically, you can study topics that are interlinked. Suppose you are studying GS2, then what you can do is after that study public administration, if that is your optional. So this interlink will be a change, but yet not such a drastic change if you're not comfortable in changing topics. Or it can be completely other way around. If you want a drastic change, you can do that as well. You can study history, and then you can study technology, and then you can study emerging technologies. It completely depends on you, but my advice is that keep it fresh every day, every week, every month. Then there are various methodologies of studying, and what I mean by keep it fresh is just an extension of changing the topic or changing the methodology. You can either read. It is quintessential. You have to read a lot in civil service preparation. And then writing practice is very important. If you're bored of reading, then you can switch to writing. Then I have mentioned in my previous talks that there are two types of writing practice. One you can do is by making notes. It is a very preliminary form of writing practice. It is a very basic form of writing practice, but that you can do. And then writing answers in the IBC format, introduction, body, conclusion format, for mains is the advanced level of answer writing that you should do for your preparation when you are reaching a stage where you can write answers competitively, when you can think of becoming oriented to the prelims mains cycle. You can do that. So bored of reading, write answers, make notes, or do answer writing in introduction, body, conclusion format. Some people tend to remember more by listening. It is not the case with me, but there are many people, some of my friends have been that way, that something that I listened in a documentary or in a conversation from someone, I can retain that for years. Sometimes it also happens for me that, okay, we were at this place, I was talking to this person and he said that. I remember it for years. It happens with you also, I think. So if you are bored of reading, not having the energy to write, you could exercise your hobby. You can watch documentaries. That is what my hobby is. I used to do that. On Facebook, there are several Facebook pages of organizations like World Economic Forum, The Better India. If I want a break, what I could do is that go watch those documentaries, and I'm still absorbing the content that will help me in answer writing for the exam. So changing the mode of study, basically, even though it is a break, but it is a change in the mode of study. Then you can listen to audio lessons. Technology enables you to do that now. There are audio lessons regarding almost every topic now. Or you can do discussions. Once again, listening. In discussions, you not only speak, but you listen. And you listen something, you retain something. So discussions are quintessential for interview, but people do it for mains as well. So reading, writing, watching, listening, discussing, all these things can be done to change the mode and the pace of preparation to keep it fresh. Then what you can do is that you can revise. Revision is non-negotiable. Sometimes people tend to revise only once what they read earlier, or some people tend to revise 10 times. I was one of the people who were more inclined for this, and it used to work for me in the sense that I read once, then I revise once, then I'm at a decent level of comfort with the topic, decent level of understanding. I can start writing answers, but that does not mean I revised only once. I revised multiple times, but then those revisions were paced slowly and kept apart temporarily. So between prelims and mains, I did only one revision per subject. Some people do 5-6 revisions as well. But then the point is that if you are not so fresh that you can absorb new content, you can revise the content that you read. It is very important. It will help you a lot. And revision is not that demanding because you have already read it, you have already marked the book, you have already probably made notes. So when you're not in the motivation to study new things, when you're not in the motivation to write, listen, discuss, when you don't have your peer group going, you can revise. That will help you use your time productively, as well as it will help you freshen up. Then there's another thing, that hard work is okay, but then activity does not always equal achievement. And you have to be more inclined towards achievement. Your activity should enable achievement. Your activity should be directed towards achievement. Every second of time that you're studying should enable you to move ahead in the exam effort, rather than going round and round in circles. So what I would suggest is that this is quintessential. This is non-negotiable. This is extremely important. Mug up the syllabus for UPSC mains, GS 1, 2, 3, 4, and your optional. Why? Because when you mug up the syllabus, you know what UPSC expects you to know. Then balance the width and depth. What I mean by that is that general studies has a very wide field. General studies is very vast. But then it cannot be that you are writing the answers that are at the level of a 6th class student. You cannot write the answers of the intellectual level of a 16-year-old. You are 21, 22, you have to show that intellect in your answers. But then it becomes a balancing act, that I have a wide syllabus to cover and I have certain depth to go to in that. So how do you do that? You review the previous year questions of UPSC. You knew the syllabus. Now you are relating it with the question paper, that okay, in that syllabus, what is that UPSC expects me to know? What is that UPSC wants me to be able to answer? That if there's a topic on impact of globalization, what does UPSC want me to know? Till what depth UPSC want me to know? This is till what depth? Then another important way is that to watch toppers' answer sheets. That okay, XYZ person got rank 1 in first, second, third, or whatever attempt. How deep was their knowledge? At the end of the day, it is a competitive exam. You don't have to be a PhD in everything. You don't have to be a PhD in anything, rather. So, if I were to write an answer on banking, it will have some level. If a 6th class student were to write an answer on banking, it will have very comparatively less depth and knowledge. But if Dr. Raghuram Rajan were to write an answer, it will be incomparable to either one of my answers or any other UPSC candidate for that matter. The point is that you don't have to go in much depth, but then you have to understand what depth to go to, and the answer sheets of toppers will help you with that. Just one caveat to that: if somebody got a rank in 2010, don't look at their answer sheets from 2007 or 8. Point is that if I got a rank 9 or rank 8 in 2019 attempt, don't look at my answer sheets from 2017. Answer writing style changes a lot, knowledge base changes a lot, presentation changes a lot, and content changes a lot. So don't try to gauge the depth from 2-year-old answer copies. It will not work that way. You will probably end up getting misguided. Try to seek out the copies from the attempt in which they got their final rank, they got their highest rank. So if you were to look at my copies, look at my copies from 2019. Then strategize and streamline. See, I said that you don't have to go in round and rounds. You have to ensure that your effort produces the maximum output. Otherwise, the cognitive tax of opportunity cost will weigh on you. So choose your content wisely. What I would suggest is that, once again, review the syllabus, go understand the depth and width, and choose the content that will enable you to cover the syllabus to the required depth. And then over and over revise that content. Don't go for 10 books that you will be reading once. Go for that one book that you will be reading 10 times. And how do you choose your content wisely? After having read that content, can you write answers which are at this level? If you can, then you have sufficient content. Please don't fall into the fear of missing out. This is a competitive exam at the end. You don't have to be an expert, but then you have to know at what level your peers are and at what level you should be. You should be at that level. Once you get there, forget about new content. Don't worry about it. How will you decide on the content? How will you improve upon your answers? How will you improve upon your presentation? Who will tell you that, okay, your answer is okay, your answer is good enough, but then you can improve it in this manner? Who will tell you that? You will get guidance from your friends. You will get guidance from the people who have written a couple of attempts, maybe from faculty members, or maybe even websites which host contents daily, which host questions daily. People write answers on it, and then they are voted by their peers. So you have a massive discussion group in which there are hundreds of people, and everyone is writing an answer, and for every question you get a different competitive answer to compare yourself with, to aspire to reach. That is a very good way of getting guidance. Online sources, faculty members, or friends are very good ways. Read and revise. See, what happens is that sometimes you compare yourself with other people who are writing the exam. This is very fair. This is the way to go, because at the end it is a competitive exam. So don't be isolated. Try to reach the level of competitiveness. For competitiveness, obvious thing is comparison. But then please also realize that if you are a beginner, you don't have a knowledge base, you don't have the understanding, you have not covered the syllabus, you cannot interlink things so well, your answer writing skills are not up to the mark, you are taking 10 minutes to write a 10 marker answer which is supposed to be 7 minutes. If you are at the initial stage, please don't indulge in a comparison with someone who has written mains twice. Compare yourself only when appropriate. Compare yourself with the people who are at the same level as yourself. Avoid the fear of missing out, that, okay, there is a new content in the market. How can I not study it? If other people study it, I will miss out. Avoid the fear of missing out, but that only when you have done comparisons with appropriate peer group, and that appropriate peer group is able to simulate the level of toppers. So when you're able to write answers as good as the people who made it through the civil service exam, and you have compared yourself with the copies of toppers who got selected in that very year from which the copy is, then don't worry about it. As simple as that. Worry about revisions. That is what my advice would be. Similar thing is that have realistic expectations. See, I must candidly accept that it took me 4 attempts and 3 selections to get to IAS. I get a lot of calls from people. They say that, sir, tell me how to clear this exam in 1 year. I say that it is very good that you have set your target high. It will keep you motivated, but don't let this motivation backfire on you. Point being that if you are not able to internalize the content, if you are not able to learn what is required for this exam, if you're not able to produce the output, if optional is taking longer time than expected, if you're not able to get proper streamlined effort going, if somehow something happens in your family, something goes wrong, if some problem happens in your family, then don't put unnecessary pressure on you that, oh no, I was supposed to clear this exam in first attempt. I was supposed to ace this exam in 1 year of preparation. Don't have unnecessary pressure on you. See, stress is good. Stress will keep you motivated. Stress will keep you focused. Stress will keep you sincere. But then, like it is said, that excess of everything should be avoided. Same is the case here. Many people have been clearing this exam in first attempt or 1 year of preparation. But then everybody is running the different race. So the point is that general studies is general, but it is not that general that you don't have to go into depth. You don't have to revise. You don't have to make notes. It is quite demanding. It is quite knowledgeable for a person to be able to write an answer in general studies. It demands some substantial amount of understanding, some substantial amount of knowledge, even though the syllabus says that a person with general awareness should be able to answer, but it is not that way. It is not exactly that way. You have to have some depth of understanding. It is good to aim for IAS in first attempt, but don't put unnecessary pressure on you. Can you compete with senior players right away? I said that somebody who has written mains twice, has appeared in the interview twice, unfortunately could not clear. But then can you compare yourself with them if you're a beginner, if you're not even read NCERTs? See, they have a foundation. Already, if they have appeared in the interview, they have a solid foundation of things. Over the years, they must have made their notes made. They must have made mistakes and corrected them. They must know their strengths and weaknesses. They must know their temperament. They must know what methodology to follow for which subject, which notes are of which institute are better for which subject. So how can you compare someone with yourself or yourself with someone who has such a massive base about things, who has such massive experience in the exam, who has such good perspective? So I would suggest that these people who have revised things, these people who know the tricks of attempting the prelims paper, that is like the 3 iteration method. Don't compare yourself with these people. Have realistic expectations. Put yourself in a sincere position. Put yourself in a realistic position. Put yourself under decent amount of pressure that will enable you to keep moving. But don't put yourself under so much pressure that will push you to depression. Then you have to develop these skills. These skills will take some time. It takes different amount of time for everyone. It took me 3 years to develop a decent essay writing skill. UPSC rejected me twice. UPSC rejected my essay twice with 105 marks in 2017 and with double-digit marks in 2018. UPSC said that this essay is just not worth it. People scored more than my marks. People scored more than my total marks of 79 in just one essay probably. Somebody must have gotten 80 marks in their essay. The people who were scoring 160 marks in their essay probably got 80 marks in their essay, in one essay. And I got 79 marks in 2 essays. So UPSC rejected my answer completely. So people take different amount of time in developing answer writing skills and presentation. So the amount of time that someone else took does not necessarily have to be the amount of time that you will take. So that is what I would advise, that have realistic expectations. About luck, yes, luck is a part of life. Luck is everywhere. Luck is going to work in UPSC also. It is sometimes joked that UPSC is unpredictable public surprise commission. So there is going to be some subjectivity. Don't put yourself in the position that, okay, I have absolutely no excuse. It is my failure. I'm worthless. I cannot do anything. Don't put yourself in this negativity if things don't work out for you as quickly as they did for others. Stay away from futile comparisons. What I would suggest is that, okay, civil service exam is a competitive exam. competitive exam inherently have an element of comparison. But then everybody has different skill sets, they have different knowledge base, they have different resources. Should a person who is working with a full-time job and also preparing for UPSC, just started preparing for UPSC, should they compare themselves with a person who has appeared in 3 interviews? I would suggest that once you have paid your dues, once you have reached a level of competitiveness, once you have developed foundation, once you have made notes, once you have covered the syllabus, once you have assessed in your strengths and weaknesses, gotten feedback from seniors, gotten feedback from mentors, once you have done introspection that, okay, how my temperament is, how I should prepare, what my methodology is, what works for me, how many revisions are required, should I make notes for everything or should I just make notes for something, how many months of answer writing practice are required, what is my optional, how much time do I need to spend in that optional, have I spent time in that optional, have I been honest with my preparation? Once you have decent answers to these questions, once you have made improvements iteratively in your study method, then I would say that, okay, go for comparisons. Otherwise, I would suggest that please realize that you have a different knowledge base. I started with absolute zero knowledge base. I had no knowledge about things when I started preparation. So I obviously needed more time to be able to get to a level where I can indulge in test series. I can indulge in comparisons. So realize that, but at the end of the day, don't have an ostrich-like approach that, okay, I will not compare myself with anyone. I'm doing what I'm doing. No, this is not how it works. Comparison helps you realize your weaknesses. Comparison helps you improve. But then comparison should be done with people who are at your level, and then you should learn from those weaknesses and improve upon them. At the end of the day, if you can be honest with yourself, if you can say that I did whatever I could have done and I'm willing to improve upon what I could not do, then your comparison is correct. You're going in the right direction. Positive reinforcement. What is that? Basically a reward. If UPSC gives you a selection, you get selected, your name appears in the final list, it gives you a positive reinforcement. It gives you a feeling of positiveness that my efforts are producing result. But if that does not happen for you, then sometimes you get plunged into years of drudgery. Sometimes positive reinforcement that is not coming from outside, you have to bring that from inside. How does that happen? Set small targets, set small milestones, achieve them, work hard and achieve them, and then give yourself a small reward. The reward has to be proportional to the target. The target can be hourly, the target can be daily. That, okay, at the end of this day, I need to cover 2 topics, XYZ length of material. I need to write XYZ number of answers. Maybe get some feedback from seniors. So it can be daily, it can even be hourly, that at the end of this hour, I need to be able to complete this much content. It can be monthly and weekly as well, that, okay, I will allot 2 months for optional, something like that. And then when you do achieve that target, do not forget to give yourself a positive reinforcement. It can be a toffee, it can be watching an episode of a TV series, it can be anything that you enjoy. That will keep you motivated, that will keep you running for it. Breaks. It is extremely important to take a break. Like I said, your brain is a machine, your brain is a muscle, it will get fatigued. So give yourself a break. What I mean is that do give yourself a break, but give yourself a small break and give yourself multiple breaks. Why I said so, I will tell you. This is my own personal understanding. Over my experience, over my years of experience, I have developed this understanding of how my brain works. What I mean by that is that if I take a small break of 25 to 30 minutes, my motivation, my freshness rises. I'm motivated to study yet again. But then in the initial 30 minutes, that freshness rises very fast. But then when I get to 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours, not much change happens in that freshness. So the 2.5 hour that I spend in a 3-hour break is not that productively used. So I tend to keep my breaks limited to 30 minutes, not more than that. This is the optimum length of a break for me. If I get beyond that, it is not contributing to my productivity. And if I get beyond 4 to 5 hours, 5, 6 hours, then entire day's motivation is lost. That, okay, let's take the complete day's break. I have not studied for like 5 hours. I'll study tomorrow. That is fine. If you are taking a planned me day, if you are taking a planned whole day break, that is fine. But don't let a 30-minute break or some small break between two subjects turn into a whole day's break. So that is why I suggest that there's an inverted U-curve relationship between the level of freshness that you get from a break and the length of that break. First it will increase, then it will stagnate, and then it will completely reduce. Take small breaks, take multiple breaks. That is what I would suggest. I used to take 10 minutes of power nap 3 times a day. I used to sleep for 6.5 hours during the night, and then 30 minutes during the day, divided into 3 power naps of 10 minutes each. Eat well and sleep well. These 2 things are important breaks. These 2 things are important fuel for your brain and for your body. Also for your body and also for your brain. If you don't eat well, your concentration will not be good. You will get a headache. You will not be able to retain things. Your productivity will fall. Similarly for sleep. So it is an important break. This is what I did. Once a 15 days, I would watch a movie. I cannot say that I did this throughout the 4 years, but during some phase of my preparation, I did. You can do this. You can have a me day. Do not study at all. Maybe once in 15 days or a week, depending on your style. This is extremely important. Have a support system. It is said that it takes a village to raise a child. Similar thing happens in UPSC as well. It takes an entire family's effort to get you into the list. I completely believe that. I have said it time and again that even though it is my name in the list, it is my entire family's and friends' effort. Too many to count here. Too many to count at any one platform. But then it is an entire team's effort that puts you there. So I would suggest that you have a robust support system who will help you, guide you. Sometimes they might be even a shoulder for you to cry on. I have said that, and it is well known that sorrow reduces by sharing. Talk about what is bothering you. Talk about your feelings with people, but only those people who genuinely care for you. Unfortunately, this thing is not well emphasized in our society. There is also a taboo attached with it. If I go to a doctor and take a medication, I am looked upon by a negative site. I get looked upon in a negative way. So, but for preparation for civil service exam, I would say that it is extremely important that you take care of your mental health. You take care of how you are feeling. You can be feeling depression if you think you are not being productive, if your marks are not coming. You can get frustrated that despite multiple revisions, I'm not able to retain the content. You can be anxious that whether I'll get selected, what will I do, what career do I have. You can get stressed by getting overwhelmed with the content, that there is so much to study, how can I complete it? New content, fear of missing out. That person is studying this notes, he is also studying, I'm not studying, then maybe in mains I will not get good marks. So this kind of mental pressure keeps on going throughout the years of preparation. And I would add one more thing to it, opportunity cost. That, okay, I studied for 3 hours, but is that the best output that I could have produced, that I just now produced from 3 hours? Did I use my time productively? Could I have completed that content in 2 hours? So did I waste my time? So I would suggest that first of all, recognize what mental state you are in. How are you feeling? If you are suffering from any of these things today or over a long period of time, recognize them. Once you recognize them, recognize the source, that what is causing this depression. Is this a family problem, something like that? Is this an academic problem? Is this a financial problem? What is it? Once you recognize your state and you recognize your source, be active in addressing it. Don't suppress it. You can either talk with yourself. I did that all the time. I do that all the time. I keep on talking to myself. It happens. I'm talking to myself. I'm thinking what I should study now, or how things went. How should I move ahead? I keep that. I do that. You can talk with your friends and peers and seniors as well, who might have gone through the same path as you, who might have faced the same challenges as you are facing now. They might have not gotten good marks in essay. They might have had trouble retaining content. They will give you tips. And even if they don't give you tips, at least they will say that, okay, it happens with everybody. You are no exception. But then everybody works hard. You will once again be no exception. At least they can give a boost of positivity to you. Same goes with friends, mentors, and siblings. For me, it was my brother. I used to talk to him frequently about regarding preparation, and I used to, and I still do, think of him as my rock of stability. It can be your parents as well. My mother, she always gave me positivity, not in the content though, but then in a way of motivation that okay, good things will come, just keep going. If these people are not enough, your friends, faculty, peers, mentors, family, then you can go for professional help. And if the professional feels that you need, they might prescribe you medication. And personally, I would advise that please don't attach a taboo to medication, that okay, how will society think if they find out that I got medication? Don't worry about it. Society is evolving. Take care of your mental. That is more important in preparation. But I would suggest that at least be honest with yourself. If you're feeling depression, and the reason is that I'm not able to retain what I read, but then I don't revise that anyway. So obviously you will not be able to retain what you didn't revise. Obviously you will not be able to retain what you were not sincere while reading. If you're not sincere, you will not associate with the content. And if you're not associating, there's only so much jargon that your brain can keep in it without having a logic for it. So be honest with yourself. If you're doing honest hard work, still it is not producing result, it is leading to depression, frustration, or anxiety, then address it by this method. But then put your effort first. This comes under the part of recognizing the state and source. If the source is a lack of effort, then these things will not help you as much. Medication cannot help you recall things or retain things. Source is what you have to recognize. Source is what you have to address, whether it is hard work or whether it is external things. External things can be helped by these. Then this is extremely important. What happens is that sometimes I feel that I'm not earning anything. I'm preparing for this exam. I've been through 2 prelims, but I could not crack them. I gave interview 3 times, but I could not get into the final list. I'm unemployed. And my batchmate, who was my roommate and had the same caliber as me, is in USA earning 1 crore package per year. How worthless am I? I would advise you that please don't indulge in such comparisons. Social media has been designed in such a way that people tend to project the highest points of their life on social media. And imagine that you have not been able to clear prelims. That is probably one of the lowest point of your life, although you are dealing it with tenacity. But then this is one of the lowest point of your life. It will help you emerge better. But then as of now, you are not as well placed as you will be in the future. So why do you want to compare yourself with people who are well placed? I always give an analogy that these are 2 different race cars. One race car is that one which won the race yesterday on the racetrack. And you are the race car who is in the pit on which maintenance work is being done. You're learning new things. You're acquiring new skills. Like the race car whose tire is being changed. So how can that race car whose tire is being changed compare itself with the race car that won the race yesterday? It does not make sense. You are comparing apples with oranges. How can you, who is preparing for a government exam, compare themselves with someone who is doing MBA and got placed in a private company? Don't indulge in such comparisons. And if social media is what is causing such stress in your mind by repeatedly being reminded by these things, I would advise you to stay away from it. But then again, I've mentioned that social media or any technology is a value neutral thing. What is good or bad is you, how you engage with it, how you use it. So I've told time and again that you can use social media productively as well. There are several pages on social media, like of newspapers, and there are several channels on YouTube. There are WhatsApp channels, there are Telegram channels, where you can get relevant content, where you can do discussions, where you can get guidance, where you can discuss with mentors. So I would advise that use social media productively. Gear your brain in such a way, control your emotions in such a way that you are able to get the best out of everything and be most productive and streamlined for your preparation. I used it for essay and GS, and I also post the content on my own Facebook page that how can content from World Economic Forum, The Better India, Business Insider, Military Defense Insider, Interesting Engineering, incidentally, how these can be better for your preparation, how they can give you better content. These 2 things, they enabled me to get unique examples for artificial intelligence. The essay that I wrote in 2019 mains had few examples from these Facebook pages, Military and Defense Insider, Business Insider. So these help you. World Economic Forum enabled me to give, that Facebook page of this organization enabled me to give unique examples of initiatives being taken all over the world. The Better India gives you local examples of leadership of people, of innovation that is happening within the country. So social media can be an asset for you. If you can control your emotions, use it productively rather than indulging in futile comparisons. But I would advise you to avoid wasting time on social media. I said that I watched these pages during breaks. So even during break, I was getting some relevant content. But don't try to spend 3 hours on Facebook just thinking that I'm watching 100 videos of World Economic Forum and then that will be productive. There's only so much that you can retain and write in the answer. I said comparing apples with oranges, don't compare yourself with the friend in New York who is earning 1 crore rupees. Compare yourself with the people who are in the same boat as you are, who are on the same level of preparation as you are. If you have covered your syllabus once, you have written mains once, then compare yourself with the people who are at the same level of preparation. Don't compare yourself with the person who just got rank 1 if you just started preparation right now. So indulge in comparisons that are reasonable. Other futile pursuits, I don't need to elaborate on that. Social media can provide you enough avenues for futile pursuits. Don't indulge in that. That is what I would say. This is extremely important. Why? Because only in a healthy body will live a healthy mind. And you need a healthy mind. You need your brain to be working at optimum capacity. You need your brain to be working at the highest productivity it can. So exercise, meditate, do Surya Namaskar if you are inclined towards yoga. Do things like that. That not only will break the monotony, that how I did was that I must confess that I was not into exercising. When I was preparing for the exam, I could never develop this knack, but I used to do exercise. I used to jog for like 45 to 50 minutes after my mains. I would do jogging and I increased my capacity. First time I could not jog for more than 5 minutes, but then it increased to 45 minutes. But that I did only after the mains till the result of mains came. But that do as I say, not as I speak. But I would say that do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so it is important. Several toppers and several people have recommended that you should exercise. It breaks the monotony that if in the evening after dinner, if you're going for half an hour walk, or in the morning, if you're going for exercise or yoga, it breaks the monotony of the cycle. You get fresh air. At 10 in the night, I would go out every day for 15 minutes. I got fresh air. It helps you. It helps you feel positive. It helps you feel nice. Again, this example I got from World Economic Forum's Facebook page. Doctors in Western countries, in UK and in Scandinavian countries, even in Japan, are prescribing nature bathing. You go into the forest, you just spend some time there. It reduces your stress. There is no medication that is needed. Just get away from the hustle bustle of the city and spend time in nature. It reduces your stress, anxiety. It increases the positivity. It is very important. It is very good. People go to hill stations to reduce stress all the time. That's something you can do as well. Some of my friends whose hobby was traveling used to travel after the mains, go to new places, learn new cultures. That can be something that will reduce your stress. If stress reduces, obviously you will be re-energized to plunge yourself into the preparation. If stress reduces, you feel positive. If you feel positive, you indulge more actively. If you indulge more actively, you can concentrate more. If you concentrate more, you will be able to get more output from the time. And if you get more output, you will get a positive loop going. As simple as that. And if it is a positive loop going, then you will feel better about yourself. Once you feel better, it is more concentration. So exercise, meditate, do whatever gives you a feel-good factor. This is very important, but this is very subjective. It depends on which stage you are in. If you are a young person, 21, 22-year-old, completely motivated for this exam, then I would advise you to not concern that much with the backup. Write 4-5 attempts, introspect, improve, get guidance, streamline, strategize. Don't divert your concentration with a backup. But then if you are like 27, 28, you have given 4 attempts, still you are not able to clear the exam, still you're not able to crack it, then I would advise that maybe you can look into a backup so that it gives you a sense of financial security. It gives you a sense of self-esteem. At the age of 27, 28, 29, sometimes people develop a sense of family obligation that my father is retiring. Maybe financial burden is there. I have to support my family. So what happens is that if you have a career option, if you have that security in mind that, okay, I'll give my sincere efforts, I'll do introspection, I'll do strategizing, and then I'll get feedback, I'll improve upon them. I'm willing to do the hard work. But if unfortunately things don't pan out for me, then I have the security of a backup. This reduces the burden on your thinking. This reduces that cognitive tax that a prospect of failure can bring. It reduces anxiety, and reduce anxiety obviously means higher productivity. And if there is low anxiety, higher productivity, you can keep your energy level high, you can be motivated, and you can keep on preparing. Similar is the idea of social work. If you do something for someone, it obviously generates a feeling of positivity in your brain. Social work cannot only be a positive source of positivity, but then your understanding of public issues, your general knowledge, your general studies, your character development that happens through civil service exam can be used in civil service, but it can also be used elsewhere, and that can also become a backup for you. It can become a part-time activity for you. Social work is something that people do sometimes after the mains to enrich their experience, to be able to provide a better profile in the mains. But then at the end of the day, I would advise you that if you're going for a backup, if you're going for some support for financial security, family obligation, self-esteem, but then please realize that it is a backup. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your aim straight. Aim on the civil service exam. Use backup plan as a support system, as a stress buster, not the other way around. Sometimes what it happens is that prelims went, then 4 months after mains happened, then 5-6 months after interview happened, then unfortunately I'm not able to make it to the list, and there's prelims 1 month after again. So you tend to feel trapped in the cycle. Prelims mains interview is going on, and then prelims yet again. So if you're facing unfortunately successive disappointments, you're not able to introspect, you're not able to understand what is going on, and you end up feeling trapped that, okay, I have to write to another mains, but then I have nothing to improve upon. Then it can weigh down on you. It can generate a negativity in you that this exam is just a matter of luck. It is not happening. It is just unpredictable. It is just undoable. Then what I would advise is that if you don't have anything to improve upon, if you have the time, if you have the financial security, if you have the wherewithal, consider taking a break from the cycle. I did that from 2015. I did not write 2016. Then I wrote 2017, and the result was this. I could not clear the prelims here. It was due to some personal reasons, but then sometimes what you do need to do is take a strategic step back, introspect on your weakness, and come out even stronger. So what I would suggest is that recharge. If you need, take a part-time job, introspect on your weaknesses. If you need time to improve upon them, sometimes people take a break, change the option, and then ace the exam. You can do something like that. But then if you're taking a break, introspect, improve, recharge. Don't just waste time. If you introspect, you find out a reason, analyze the cause, improve upon that. If you improve, things will start looking up in the tests. And then if they do improve in the tests, you will start feeling positive about yourself. You will come out of that negative feedback loop. You will come out of that cycle of prelims mains interview without any improvement happening. If you're trapped in the cycle, no improvement is happening, you can take a break, introspect, and improve. I would advise you to not let go of the focus of why you wanted to go to civil service, not only of the motivation that is in your head, but also on the job prospects, on the challenges, the options, as well as the opportunity to develop, learn, apply that civil services provides. Keep on your focus. Keep your energy directed towards your aim. How do you do that? Sometimes you can watch documentaries about civil service. Sometimes you can read books by civil servants, their memoirs, and their experiences. You can listen to talks by serving officers, selected candidates about their experiences. It will enable you to understand what you are aiming for. It will enable you to understand what you eventually will get in the civil service. It will also give you a sense that this person who got selected, who got AIR 8, was also an ignorant person at one point of time who did not even know what the Supreme Court of India has to do with the Constitution. I was that ignorant at some point of time, but then I could improve upon myself with dedicated efforts. With 4 attempts, I could improve upon myself and then eventually get a positive result. If I can do that, then anyone else can do. And that is the kind of motivation that you can get by listening to toppers, by listening to people who improved upon their mistakes, by listening to how they overcome those mistakes, by keeping your energy focused for preparation. You understand the service profiles, understand the prospects of those service, what challenges they are going to provide. That gives you a motivation that, okay, I also want to do that. I saw the DM working during the pandemic when I was preparing for the interview. It gave me a new boost of focus that, okay, this person is the nodal authority. This person is the responsible person for the management of the entire district during the pandemic. This person has to manage the supply chain. This person has to manage the healthcare. This person has to manage the contact tracing. It gave me a new focus that how much opportunity this person is getting to learn and manage. So opportunity, diversity, the scale that you will be responsible for 20 to 25 lakh people, their welfare, the scale that you will get to work in terms of the vast resources of the country, the institutionalized platform that these services provide. These things can, the challenges can reinvigorate you to prepare that, okay, no, whatever happens, I will do it. I have to do it. Do a strength, weakness, opportunities, threat analysis on yourself. That, okay, this person got selected. What was his skill set? What was his temperament? How did he manage things? What was his failures? How did he or she deal with them? So if they can deal with their failures, what are my weaknesses? How do I deal with them? If my weaknesses are same as those people and then they got selected, they made it to the list, then why can't I? So this fear of how weak am I even competent? Am I even capable enough? Do I have the profile? These things will go away if you keep your eyes on the prize, if you listen to selected candidates, if you keep on doing a SWOT analysis of yourself. That, okay, what are my weaknesses? What are my strengths? How do I capitalize on my strengths? How do I turn my weaknesses into strengths? How do I overcome my weaknesses? The simple reason is that if they can, why can't I? Keep your eyes on the prize. Learn from the best. This is something that will give you immense motivation. This will be a validation of your strategy, that whatever you do, whatever you did was working fine. It needs fine tuning, but then you're on the right track. It will be a vindication of your sincerity and capacity. The fear that I'm not from IIT or AIMS or IIM or I'm not a 9-pointer. I was not a 9-pointer in college, or I don't have a prolific profile. This will go away once your name appears in the list. You will feel that you're competitive. UPSC gives a positive feedback, although even it is with a 1-year delay, but then it gives a positive feedback and nothing can be better. But then again, what you do is that introspect and improve. What I mean by that is that I mentioned that I got 105 marks, 79 marks in essays in successive exams. The only option that was left for me was to understand what my problem was, what I was doing wrong. So if you keep doing this, you will feel a sense of newness, that something new is happening, something good is happening. I have area to work upon. And that will reduce the stress that you feel, that I'm being directionless, I don't know what to do. If that happens, then you feel a higher amount of stress. You don't know where to put your energy in. But then if you get selected, UPSC gives a feedback to you in terms of marks. You get an area to work upon. And that can be one of the ways how you can keep your wheels turning. Finally, quintessential topic. Sometimes it happens that societies or people who are in your circle tend to speak negative things about you. Stay away from such people. That is what I would advise. I can give you my own example. Some members of my extended family didn't even know that I was preparing for civil service exam 1 to 2 years into preparation. Some other members of that family did not even know that I was preparing for this exam unless I got selected in 2017. When my name appeared in the list, then it became apparent and in the knowledge of some people that I was preparing. My idea is that you should stay away from the people who will give you a negative emotion, who will belittle you, who will insult you, who will say that, okay, you can't prepare, it is very tough, you're not good enough. Stay away from such people. I said about support system, have people who are genuine well-wishers in your support system. I have always believed that action speaks louder than words. Don't try to broadcast that I'm preparing for civil service exam, I'm going to be a collector one day. Don't broadcast this. The result will speak it for yourself, and the result will speak it louder than you ever will. Just keep working. Nishkam karm. Do work without the expectation of result. That is what I would advise. Keep working. Keep putting in your efforts. Don't broadcast. Keep things to yourself. One day, your effort will bear the result. If people give negative feedbacks, put pressure on you, then stay away from them. Don't try to publicize, or don't make too much out of it. Just ignore them. This can be very important for motivation. It makes you feel fresh. It pulls you out of the drudgery. It pulls you out of the monotony. Hobby is something you do that you like. Hobby can be something of immense recreation. Hobby can be something that develops your personality. That will become extremely important for interview. It depends on what your hobby is and whether or not you can pursue it every day. For example, the people whose hobby is traveling, they probably cannot travel a lot, probably once or twice a year, but then they can take long trips after the mains. The people whose hobby is watching documentaries like mine, they could use it as a means of recreation. I mentioned it a couple of times in this talk itself. It will help you in the exam. It will help you become a better, knowledgeable person. So pursue your hobbies. That will relieve the stress of the monotony. That will relieve the stress of isolation. There is a life outside the exam. Civil service exam is a part of your life. It is going to be a very important part of your life for some years. But that does not mean it has to be the exclusive thing in your life. Once again, I would advise that do as I say, not as I did, because I faced the problem of balancing hobbies with the preparation. I could balance this one hobby, but many things got sidelined. But then once again, this was my candid, honest acceptance. But that does not mean the value of hobby reduces. Hobby will enable you to develop a wholesome personality. You might be preparing for civil service, but your hobby might be writing poems. That will enable you to keep a connect with your inner self so that you don't get lost. It will reduce the isolation. It will reduce the sense of drudgery. It will reduce the pain of giving up social life, that you are not meeting people, but at least you are doing something that you like other than preparation. And this doing something that you like gives a positive feedback, gives happiness, and that happiness gets reflected in your effort. If you are a working professional, then you probably will not give up completely your social life, but then still you will face isolation during this exam. Why? Because in breaks, you will be studying. You will not be involved in gossip so much. After the work, you will not be so social. So this pain of giving up your social life, either work or completely, will be reduced by pursuing a hobby. I mentioned how it can help for content in the exam. World Economic Forum, I have written here itself. That helped me. The documentaries that I watched, the informative videos that I watched on these platforms, the blogs that I read, helped me enrich my content for not just the mains, but even for the interview. Incidentally, my hobby has been watching documentaries about structures, and that becomes a very helpful thing during preparation to reduce the monotony as well as increase the momentum and a feel good. I would say that preparation can be quite monotonous, but then you can schedule it properly. If your schedule is properly designed, you have assigned time to sleep, recreation, changing subjects, it increases productivity. If I'm getting up at the same time broadly, going to bed at the same time broadly, reading the newspaper, having meals at the same time, it brings order to the day. And this order can increase your productivity. This order can reduce the monotony. It helps you keep sense of time. If you're spending too much time sitting around just doing nothing, and if your schedule is not well organized during the preparation, your productivity will not be as good. Your motivation will not be as good. Your biological cycle will not be as good. So I would advise you to streamline your study schedule as per the requirement of the exam. The exam requires you to be productive from 9 to 5. So I would advise you to be someone who goes to bed at latest by 1 to 2, get up at 8, 8:30, something like that, and ensure that you are productive, you are motivated, you are studying, and you are awake during the entire day. Don't develop a habit of sleeping from 3 to 4 in the day, because at that time during the exam you will have to be writing answers, you will have to be productive. So I would advise you to develop a schedule that basically corresponds with the requirement of the exam. Compartmentalize. What I mean by that is have slots for preparation, have slots for topics that, okay, from 8 to 10 I'll read the newspaper, or 8 to 11:30 I'll read the newspaper. In the afternoon I will 4 hours from 2 to 6 I'll study some subject with one break in the middle, and from 7 to 11 I'll study another subject with one break in the middle. What I'm saying that is, even if one of the compartments, one of the slots gets wasted, like 2 to 6, some emergency came, I could not study. But then if you have compartmentalized your day, you can switch back to studies at 7 o'clock, thinking that forget about what happened during that day, forget about that emergency, forget about the fact that that slot got wasted. The evening slot, for which I have already made a schedule, can still be used. This psychological flexibility helps you if you have compartmentalized your preparation, your study schedule, your day. So I would request you or advise you that, okay, don't make a extremely rigid schedule, but that is what I did, that I did not make a rigid schedule, but then have broadly compartmentalized sections in the day to ensure that one slot got wasted, another slot does not get affected, at least not psychologically. Have space for recreation, have space to pick up slacks. This is extremely important in your schedule. I will study for 12 hours at a stretch. That is not going to happen. That will never happen. That has never happened with anyone. Everybody has needed breaks. And then you cannot always be 100% productive with whatever you are studying, right? Sometimes you might assign 4 hours for a particular topic, that might run into 4.5 hours, 5 hours. So have some flexibility in your schedule, not necessarily in the daily schedule, but assign some time in the weekend or on Sunday to pick up the slacks, pick up what was inefficient in your schedule and work over it. Pick up what was left in your schedule, what could not be fulfilled, and work over it. As simple as that. Then I would advise you to schedule smartly. The special example that I would give you, that if you're attempting tests, if you're writing answers, it can be a very draining exercise because you have to be completely focused for those 3 hours. Not only your mind, but your body also. Your hand gets cramped, your fingers start to ache. But then after the test, you get a sense of accomplishment. But then that sense of accomplishment can give you a sense of or a feeling that I've done well with the day. Now I'll take a break. That can be a waste of time still. So what I would advise, that if you're going to write a test, make it the last thing of the day. What I did during the mains, that had I gone for this kind of schedule for writing the answer, after 5 p.m. I would have been completely drained, not left with the energy to do anything. So what I did was that from 7 to 4 p.m., 7 in the morning to 4 p.m., study as per regular schedule. Then from 4 to 7, write one test. From 7 to 9, take 2 hours of break like UPSC will give you. And from 9 to 12 in the night, write another test and go to bed at 12 p.m. You see the advantage, that those 8-9 hours of the day that would have been wasted, these hours of the day that would have been wasted, the 9 hours of the day, were used productively. I studied at first, then drained my brain completely, drained my body completely of energy, and then went to bed right away. So the time after 5 o'clock that would have gone wasted otherwise, had I stuck to this schedule of answer writing, got used productively by sticking to this schedule of answer writing. So that is the advice I would give you. Then obviously, after having done some effort, done some study, however productively, however sincerely, your brain will tend to get tired. In the morning you were fresh, you were energetic, but then till the end of the day you will lose motivation, you will lose energy. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, it's 9 o'clock in the evening, you're tired. It is like 2-3 hours before you go to bed, but naturally your body will get tired. So what I would advise is that keep small breaks in the initial phase of the preparation in the day, and let those breaks become relatively longer, slightly more frequent towards the end of the day. If you're going to go for a walk, try not to go for a walk in the morning. You're already energetic, you're already fresh. Try to go for a walk after the dinner. That is what I did. At 10 o'clock in the night, I used to go outside for some air. Then please recognize what topics are of your interest, what topics are not. If there is something that is completely draining, that does not motivate you, that you don't like geography was for me, then club the studying of that topic with a topic that is of interest for you, that is of motivation for you. That way, you will be able to balance your productivity. You will not be as productive in geography, but then you will be highly productive in that one particular topic. That probably will be your optional. So that overall productivity of the day will not be compromised upon. There can be a whole spectrum of topics of your interest and of your uninterest. Match this with this as part of your schedule and keep these things together. You can mix and match. That will increase your productivity. Finally, I would say that life is too short to learn from your own failures. This has been said time and again. There's nothing new. But then, if you are facing failure, if you're facing shortcomings, if you are not able to figure out what to do, if you are losing breath at the last mile of the race, at the last mile of the marathon rather, because UPSC exam is like a marathon, then remember these people who face failures immensely, who face rejection immensely. How did they overcome? That will make you feel positive about yourself, that if these people can overcome such immense rejections, such immense failures, then maybe I can too as well. If several hundred toppers in the previous years have overcome years of rejection to get a rank in their 6th attempt, to become IAS in their last attempt, then why can't I? Like I said, sorrow reduces by sharing. Even if by this way you're not sharing some of your pain directly, but then you are relating yourself with someone else who was in the same situation as yourself and eventually became successful. That will make you feel that, okay, if they can, why can't I? Similar is the case with friends and peers. There are experiences with everyone. Maybe your friends are preparing. Maybe your friends could not clear some other exam they were preparing for in the first attempt. Maybe your friend could not clear CAT in the first attempt, but then they worked hard and they cleared it. There are famous speeches by famous leaders who have invigorated generations. Their ideas were so forceful that they inspired people to work hard. Maybe you could look into that in your free time. That will not only widen your horizon, it will add to your personality and as well as motivation. I would advise you to look over it in your free time. Maybe that can be one of your hobbies, that I listen to speeches, I listen to inspiring leaders, I read biographies, I read autobiographies, I learn a perspective, I learn new things. That can add to your preparation as well. And learning to deal with failure is a very important part, not only in preparation, but also in life. And I have always believed that this thing can be one of the immense contribution of civil service exam preparation to your personality, irrespective of what result comes. At the end of the day, I've always said that this exam is like a martial art and every master has to develop his or her own style. I would say that do whatever motivates you, do whatever energizes you, do whatever gives you energy to go on, do whatever it is that enables you to keep the wheels turning. You can listen to inspirational music, you can pray to a god if you believe in some god. You can also review your own previous successes. It sounds a little bit weird, but I have been told that whenever a cricketer is out of form, he or she is shown the clips of the matches in which they were outstanding, in which they led the team, in which they carried the team to victory. That generates a positive feedback loop. Remember your successes, remember the highest points, remember what you did to achieve those points, and then it will give you a motivation to do whatever you did at that time to overcome the burden that is on you, to overcome that negativity. The idea is to shift from the negative feedback loop to a positive feedback loop, as simple as that. I'm sharing a couple of lines from a song that I used to listen to get motivated. It goes like this, that history repeats itself. Try and you'll succeed. Never doubt that you're the one and you can have your dream. You're the best around. Nothing is ever going to keep you down. It made me feel positive that in my life I have achieved successes. I have worked hard. I have a strength. I have a set of skills that I can capitalize upon to achieve what I'm dreaming of. So if it happened in the history, why can't it happen again in the future? Then these are two more songs. You're the best around. I just shared a couple of lines from that song. Then these are two more songs that I used to listen for peace and serenity. These things are helpful. These things will keep you positive. These things will keep you motivated. These things will enable you to work hard. And these things will, at the end of the day, enable you to keep the wheels turning and help you reach the final destination. Hopefully, this talk will help you. Hopefully, the points that I have shared, hopefully my limited wisdom, my limited experience will help you achieve your final destination. Thank you very much and good luck.